Another week of turmoil over MPs' expenses, but who's angrier this time, the public or the politicians? Welcome to Question Time.
Should MPs resign if they refuse to repay their excess expenses?
Nigel Farage.
I can understand some MPs saying, well, isn't it a little bit unfair that something has been done retrospectively, that we didn't know what the limits were on cleaning? So I can understand there's a slight reason for arguing, but my real impression of this week is it's what's not been said for the Legg inquiry that shocks me. You know, he hasn't talked about the cynical way in which members of Parliament flipped from one primary residence to another one to enable them to furnish their houses. And perhaps even bigger than that, what hasn't been discussed is the fact that in doing that, they didn't just furnish their houses, but they sold some of those properties for substantial profits and avoided paying capital gains tax. So any minor whinge there might be about this being done retrospectively is vastly outweighed by what hasn't come out already. And I think what's going to happen is we won't just get members of Parliament being forced to resign. I suspect that several of them, and I'm thinking about the phantom mortgages in particular, will go to prison. And as far as the British public's concerned, it can't happen soon enough.
And do you think some people will go to prison, as Nigel Farage says? Or should go to prison over these things?
Nigel's colleagues in the European Parliament for fraud and embezzlement. Nigel himself...
that's why we kicked him out of our party.
Well,
you know, Jackie Smith, it looks like he's going to the House of Lords. There's quite a difference there, isn't there? You know, I mean, come on.
I thought I'd stir Nigel up. Two of his MEPs arrested on fraud and embezzlement. If any of our MPs in Norman's party or Benny's party or mine were convicted of that, they would resign immediately. Of course they would. So let's not have any Simon purity from Nigel.
Hang on, we got rid of our... Alan, we got rid of our people before there were any criminal charges proven against them. We got rid of them because of breach of trust, and you should do that with your people as well.
It was said about your predecessor at the Home Office, Jackie Smith, who made what was called an apology to the House this week by the Daily Mail today, that if a British Army officer had falsely claimed £100,000 by giving the wrong address, he'd have been court-martialled and sacked in disgrace, and yet the Home Secretary can apparently escape with no punishment beyond apologising to the Commons.
That's because the committee that looked at this, the reason why they didn't ask Jackie Smith to pay the money back is, first of all, they said she didn't break any rules, and secondly, that she didn't make any personal monetary gain out of this, and that was their ruling.
It's very interesting, isn't it? There are lots of discrepancies in what Legg is saying, and there are people trying to justify this and justify that and wonder why this isn't being considered, as Nigel is saying, and Damien's happy to pay on. What they are all neglecting is that this is a chaotic shambles right across the political system. And everybody seems to refer to the rules. We kept the rules. We didn't do anything wrong. But what has happened to moral compass? Where is everybody's moral?
Let me just ask, Alan Johnson, do you think that the Legg inquiry should be widened to include the things that both Nigel Farage and Mr. Baker...
Well, it was down to Legg to do that. I mean, you know,
he's instructed by the House of Commons.
Norman makes this point about Nick Clegg. This is the Nick Clegg who claimed £1.50 for paper napkins, incidentally, before you start being all pious about your leader.
Well, you claim £200 a month for food. Why do you get money for food?
Not the whole of the food, no.
What?
No, I'm Simon Pure. No one said anything on me.
No, but you get paid for... It's a mystery to people. You get paid £200. You're allowed to take 400. You've been taking 200, as far as I know, every month for food. Everybody else has to eat. Nobody can eat twice. Why do MPs get money for food? Just before we leave this, the two main parties, do you believe people will go to prison at the end of this process?
It's a matter for the...
of course it is, but do you believe there's grounds for prosecution?
Well, the police are investigating, at least to my knowledge, 3 of our colleagues and we'll have to see how that goes.
Of your colleagues, or within the
House?
Across the House.
House.
What's your view?
I genuinely don't know. I just think when I read what some people have done, I think it'll be pretty ironic if we get to the end of this Parliament and the only MP that gets arrested is me for doing my job.
If the BNP holds on to its beliefs, is anything achieved by changing its membership requirements?
This is on the basis that the BNP has agreed today to, or the leader of the BNP, Nick Griffin, has said they're going to change their membership so that they don't discriminate on grounds of race or religion.
Do you not think that this is actually driving people towards becoming members of the BNP? And I say that in total disgust of the BNP and not for it, but there does seem to be an argument that people are being driven towards membership.
Nigel Farage?
I think we're getting this all wrong, sir. I agree with you. Look, earlier this year, there was hysteria in the British media about what the BNP might or might not do in the European elections, and wild predictions that they'd, win lots of seats and gain loads of money. And why didn't they succeed? Because they didn't really succeed. They picked up 2 seats, one in Yorkshire and one across the other side of the Pennines, just in the northwest, and they scraped both of those seats, and they didn't get any more votes than they'd got 5 years previously. I'll tell you why. That is because people who wanted to register their displeasure at the fact we've had an open-door immigration policy to the whole of Eastern Europe for the last 5 years were able to say, with the UK Independence Party, we've got a non-racist, non-sectarian political party that wants to make a stand, that believes we've got too many people coming into Britain, and our main campaigning point was that the difference between us and the BNP is that 5 of our 69 members, candidates I should say, were black and Asian candidates who were standing on our ticket, and that this could never happen with the BNP because of Clause 2 of their constitution, which forbade black and Asian people from being members or candidates of that party. And in areas like Hull, where we are tonight, UKIP topped the poll, beating all the other parties and smashing the BNP out of sight. I think this is a huge mistake. I've argued this face-to-face with Trevor Phillips. I really don't believe that the Equalities and Human Rights Commission should make this a priority. The attempt to sanitise the BNP is not an intelligent thing to do. Leave them as they are, leave them as a racist organisation, and they will go precisely nowhere.
I'd just like to ask the UK Independence Party how you can say that you're not racist and have issues around racial hatred and religious hatred if you've invited Geert Wilders to come to the UK.
Well, first things first, I haven't. First things first, I haven't invited Geert Wilders. Lord Pearson of Rannoch, who is a UKIP peer, has invited Wilders in a purely personal capacity, and I must say that Alan's predecessor made a huge mistake in trying to ban somebody coming into this country to have a discussion about Sharia law. You might have seen in the newspapers today there is a big demo planned in London for the end of this month by people who actually demand that we have Sharia law in Britain. Let's have a debate about these things, but you have my assurance at all stages UKIP has been and will continue to be a non-racist, non-sectarian political party.
You can't disown UKIP. You can't disown Lord Pearson.
I'm not
disowning you went out of your way to get him to join UKIP along with 2 others.
I am not disowning
You said,
Lord
it wasn't
Pearson.
UKIP, it was Lord Pearson.
I am not, no, I said it wasn't me and it wasn't the party officially. It was one of our members of the House of Lords who's invited Wilders over, and he's right to do so because we need to have this debate.
The man there, no, hold on. The man there, with you, sir.
I totally agree with Nigel Farage there. The issue of Geert Wilders, yes, he was stopped coming in, but he was stopped coming in. He's got a view. He's prevented from putting that view purely because it doesn't tie in with the government view. Surely he has a right, just as much as everybody else, whether you agree with it or not, he has a right to express it.
That's right.
And the problem we have is when somebody decides to express a view that doesn't toe the line, then they are branded as racist, and they may not be.
They were elected on this European seat. I know that. I know that.
No, they
Look,
weren't.
They were elected on the. They were elected
Not
on
the National Front, the BNP.
No, BNP. I'm talking about.
Well, it's a national election, Minister. The BBC haven't put them on question time. The voters have.
No. I'm sorry.
That's what's happened.
I'm sorry.
The
BBC have taken this decision.
How
They've
can they
taken
not
a
do it?
decision we now know with an illegally constituted party.